Hello, I'm Doug Strycharczyk. I'm the CEO of AQR International, and I'm delighted to be able to share this presentation with you. I'm really looking forward to being able to discuss with you probably one of the most important developments in individual and organizational development today. I'm speaking to you from Chester, a city in the north of England, and the weather here is very dull. So on we go. So I'm going to be talking about mental toughness. It's a growing and very important issue, and it's probably the most important issue to deal with the issues that we're going to be facing in the 21st century. So what is our challenge? Well, the theme of the conference is future skills and learning. And one of the big challenges that we face and why these are important is that we live in what people now call a VUCA world. It's volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. But the reality is we've always lived in that world for thousands of years. It's always been changing. What is so different today is that we are dealing with a pace of change, a frenetic pace of change. 20 months ago, we would be having this discussion and we wouldn't even know what coronavirus was. Now we have had 20 months of complete upheaval. But what that means is soft skills and our ability to approach events like this are now becoming as important as technical skills. And as you can see on the right-hand side of the slide, that the World Economic Forum in 2017, to an extent, predicted this, because they found that for the 21st century, yes, you would need certain core technical skills, which they call foundational skills. And there were a number of competencies. But what they began to introduce were ideas such as character qualities. And that's really what we're going to be talking about today. And just to underline that, Forbes recently published a piece which said that their research had tracked 20,000 new hires. 46% of them failed within 18 months. That's an interesting question. Why do they do that? And 89% of the time, it was for attitude, and only 11% of the time for a lack of skill. This is telling us that skills are important, but there's a special section of skills that are even more important. So what I'm going to be talking about is mental toughness. We're not talking about mental toughness in the sense that this is aggressive or somehow challenging. We're talking about mental toughness in the resilience sense of the term. And what we now know is that it's a personality trait, which determines in some parts, it's a big part of the answer, it's not the whole of the answer, how people respond mentally when exposed to stress, pressure, opportunity, and challenge, irrespective of the situation. And when we talk about stress, pressure, opportunity, and challenge, we're talking about our lives. That's exactly what we experience. So something that helps us to be able to manage that better has got to be valuable. It's incredibly well evidenced. There are now more than 250 peer-reviewed research papers which support the concept and the measure that I'm going to describe. Essentially what we're doing is addressing the thing that Forbes was talking about, this issue of attitude. But more importantly, it helps us to explain why we act the way we do. You see, most of you, when we talk about personality, will be very familiar with the term, but you'll be familiar with an aspect of personality. We tend to talk about personality in terms of the way we act when things happen. So it's about behavioral. So people sometimes describe it as behavioral aspects of personality, but behavior has to come from somewhere. And what we know is that behavior is very strongly influenced by the way we think. So another way of describing mental toughness is describing how we think when things happen. But the problem with how we think is we can't see it. And we know this is not a new concept, it's a very old concept. Plato spoke about it 2,500 years ago. The Romans, in the Stoics, they spoke about the concept almost 2,000 years ago. And there was an understanding that life had its ups and downs, and somehow there's a quality that people could possess that would enable them to deal with those ups and downs. But we've not been able to understand it until recently because it's invisible. It's in your head. We can see behavior, but we can't see inside people's heads. Well, we've got a framework that helps us to do that now. And this has initially been developed by Professor Peter Clough, who's one of my colleagues, when he found that mental toughness consisted of 4 main components: control, commitment, challenge, and confidence. Now, that was a very useful development because it enabled us to get to another level of understanding of the concept. And those are the 8 factors that sit in the middle of that image, which we call the pizza image for obvious reasons. And I'm going to very briefly describe those to you. So we start off with the control element. That consists of 2 factors: life control, which is describing a sense of self-worth. It describes the extent to which you feel that you're in enough control of your life to succeed. It's where the sense of can-do sits. When we ask people to do things, some people will say, yeah, leave it with me, I can do it. Other people will say, oh, I'm not sure I can do it. They might have exactly the same level of skills and experience, but it's their mindset, their mentality that's determining whether they're going to use those skills or not. The next one is emotional control. And in a sense, we can't control our emotions, but if we're angry, is it helpful for us to somehow manage our anger? And the answer in most cases is yes. So this is describing the extent to which we're able to manage our emotions and make sure that the decisions we make in our life are rational decisions and not dictated by our emotions. In the top right-hand corner, we've got commitment. And there are 2 elements to that, and they're kind of obvious. The first one is goal orientation. And what we find is that some people have got the ability to visualize what they want to achieve in their lives. They can set goals and targets for it, and these tend to motivate them. But despite this, not everybody then does what is needed to achieve their goals. And so the second of the factors is achievement orientation. Now, this is describing the extent to which you're prepared to do whatever it takes to succeed, and you're not easily distracted from your purpose. And the reason why people guided towards achievement orientation is they understand the satisfaction you get mentally from doing a good job. So those 4 factors approximate to our understanding of resilience. However, there's a little bit more to mental toughness than resilience. And that is where we begin to bring in the challenge element. And here we can understand that there are 2 factors. The first one is risk orientation. Now, as we go through life, we almost every day have to make little decisions and sometimes big decisions. And when we make those decisions, we can either choose to avoid risk completely and stay as we are, and in which case we very often make little progress, or we have a range of options that carry a degree of risk, but obviously carry a degree of reward. That's what risk orientation is describing. So it's describing the extent to which you as an individual are open to change, to new experiences, and the extent to which you see opportunity when other people see threat. And then the second of the factors is learning orientation. And I think this is central to the whole concept of mental toughness. And it's actually the central theme for your conference. Because what we've learned is, as we go through life, lots of things happen to us. We go to classes, we go on courses, we see things happen, and we either learn from all of that or we don't. A lot of us will go through those events and they may as well never have happened. Some of us have the capability to reflect. And if we reflect, we're often able to learn from those experiences and from those events. And that is crucial. And then the last of the elements is confidence. And this consists of 2, again, very important factors. The first one we describe as confidence and abilities. And this is about self-belief. And again, this is highly relevant for the subject of skills. And we see this all the time in our work. This is about the extent to which we believe in our knowledge, skills, and abilities. We can have 2 people who know equal amounts, are equally skilled, but if one doubts their ability, they don't use their abilities, they don't use their skills. If another one believes in their abilities, they'll use their skills. So it's one thing to skill an individual or a workforce or a society. It's another to give them the confidence to use those skills. And then the final element is interpersonal confidence. And that again is a really important aspect of attitude. There is very little in life that we do as individuals completely by ourselves. To make progress with most things, we have to engage with other people. And what this is describing is the extent to which mentally you can influence other people as much as they influence you, but very especially the extent to which you engage with other people to be individually productive and collectively productive. Now, all of those factors have a high and a low end. People who are at the high end are described as mentally tough. People at the lower end are often described as mentally sensitive. It isn't quite as black and white as that. We don't have enough time to explore this in this session, but it is perfectly possible also to be mentally tough and to fail. And the reason for that is a lack of self-awareness. You not only have to have a degree of mental toughness, it definitely gives you an advantage, but you need to be self-aware about your mental toughness in order to optimize it. And similarly, it is perfectly possible to be mentally sensitive. For mentally sensitive individuals often have a harder journey through life, but they can be equally successful, provided they are self-aware, understand the mental sensitivity, and introduce and develop coping strategies to deal with any issues that might arise. So what we're saying here is we have an understanding of how everybody can perform to the best of their abilities. So is it important? Well, I spoke about 250 peer-reviewed studies. There's 4 consistent themes come through all of that research. Firstly, there's a big link between mental toughness and performance. On average, we know that 25% of the variation in an individual's performance can be explained by their level of mental toughness. That's phenomenal. There's no other factor that is as significant. And moreover, if that individual is well equipped, well trained, and well motivated, that 25% can rise to 50%. So if you're concerned with being productive and concerned with performance, and performance can mean a lot of things, mental toughness is an essential quality. But in the present COVID era, we also understand there's a big link between mental toughness and well-being. So firstly, we know that the mentally tough and the mentally sensitive are equally prone to anxiety, depression, and so on. But the mentally tough are much better able to deal with anxiety, depression, stress. Interestingly, they sleep better. And then agility. Agility is about our ability to respond to sudden events, to sudden big changes, to dramatic changes, COVID again being one of them. And we know that the mentally tough are much better able to respond to those kind of changes and not be distracted from what they need to do than the mentally sensitive. And then finally, as you might expect, there's a big connection with aspirations. The mentally tough individual sees opportunity where other people might see threats. They have a better understanding of hope and what hope can realize for them. Now, what we're finding, we now work in 80 countries. We work with every manner of organization in every sector, business, sport, education. These have got major applications in individual and organizational development, in coaching. When you think about it, the mental toughness concept is central to good coaching practice. In leadership development, in team working, and almost everything that organizations, individuals, and society need to attend to for a productive environment. Can we assess it? Well, the answer is we can. One of the byproducts of the research that we've been carrying out is we've been able to develop a very high quality psychometric measure, which assesses all of the qualities that I've described. And on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see a typical representation of the mental toughness scores for an individual. And this is actually a real profile. It's a real profile for one of the most senior executives in one of the biggest organizations in the world. What this is illustrating, though, is you can see the scores are very much on the right-hand side of the screen. There's actually a couple of scores on the left-hand side. What this is telling us is that it's perfectly normal to be both mentally tough and mentally sensitive at the same time. And it's really important to understand that if I have degrees of mental sensitivity, I need to be aware of them and I need to know what to do about them. Can we develop it? Again, we can. And this is perhaps not a surprise, because whether we understood the concept of mental toughness or not, trainers, coaches have been trying to develop what their understanding of mental toughness is. When they see people stressed, can they help them? When they see people confused, can they help them? And the tools and techniques are all out there. We know what the tools and techniques are. So the positive thinking, anxiety control, goal setting, visualization, attentional control. The challenge now, though, is if we can understand an individual and an organization better, then we can direct these interventions much better. In other words, a lot of the training and coaching that's carried out can often be a hit and miss. Let's give a training course to everyone. Well, perhaps we shouldn't. We should give a training course for the people who most need it. And then the interesting thing is that one area that we have been able to add to this is the test. The test achieves something that is vitally important that I've already mentioned, and that's self-awareness. Once people complete the test, they get the feedback. If they are reflective, they will learn what they can do to be able to optimize their lives. So in summary, through this, understanding this concept, we can make a difference. We make a big contribution to individuals and organizations being able to improve themselves. The mental toughness concept provides a practical solution to the most important question that anyone has. Why do I act the way I do? It helps us to diagnose need more reliably. It enables us to direct learning and development much better. And the MTQ plus psychometric measure enables us to measure and enables us to evaluate activity in a way that was not been possible up to now. And I go back to the first person who developed the concept of mental toughness. He was an American sports psychologist who also coined the term mental toughness. He described it as enabling all to be the best version of themselves that they can be. Thank you for listening. I've really enjoyed sharing that with you. If you need more information about mental toughness and the mental toughness measures, by all means, email headoffice@aqr.co.uk. Please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. And you will see at the bottom of the screen that there are a number of books. Possibly the most important one is the one on the right-hand side, which is the third edition of the best-selling book, Developing Mental Toughness. And it comes out on September the 3rd. So thank you again.